Hey, how's it going everyone? This is the Anime Man. So, if you don't know, I'm half Japanese, or as we tend to say in Japanese, a hafu. My mother is full-blood Japanese and my father is Hungarian, German-born Australian, which technically makes me a half Japanese, quarter Hungarian, quarter German-born Australian. Thank God for the word hafu. Now, I'm fully aware that every time I say the word hafu on the internet, I have to be cautious as it's a lot like stepping on eggshells. The word itself is used quite commonly, but there's both a positive and negative connotation with it depending on who you ask. I find that the word hafu in that sense is a lot like the word otaku. Some people view being categorized as an otaku as an empowering, inclusive word that people are proud of, while others tend to avoid the word due to its negative stereotypes and stigmas. Some people, like myself, don't really mind being referred to as a hafu because, well, that's just what I am. That's what I was born as, and there isn't much that I can do about it. But at the same time, some half Japanese people really dislike being categorized as a hafu due to the fact that it's a word that can be used in somewhat of an exclusive manner in Japan. As Japan is primarily a country that has, well, Japanese people, the word hafu can be taken as a word which basically sums up as, oh, well, we're aware that you have Japanese blood in your veins, but your veins aren't as pure as ours. Only hafu of you is the same. Get it? And the other hafu of you is pretty much alien to us. This kind of negative connotation of the word is unfortunately quite common, and I can say that from personal experience having lived in Japan for almost half my life now. I've seen some people call me a hafu in a more admirative sense, like, wow, you're a hafu? That's so cool! While others, mostly that of the older generation, call me a hafu in a more facetious and sometimes condescending way. But unlike a lot of other people you might see on YouTube talking about situations like this, I'm pretty adamant to refer to situations and people who are condescending towards hafus as just racism. Because almost every time I stumble across a situation where somebody is calling me a hafu in the more negative, condescending way, I always make sure to do one thing that almost always clears up the negative connotation. I speak Japanese. And I mean a lot of Japanese. I think a lot of people get the wrong idea about how and why I studied my ass off in my youth to be as fluent in Japanese as I am now. Most people will probably be very quick to assume that I learned Japanese for the classic weeb reasons. It's so that I don't have to rely on subs and dubs when watching anime. It's so that I can read manga and light novels in Japanese and I don't have to wait or miss out completely on new releases. It's so that I can speak Japanese and act like my favorite anime character with other Japanese people. And while, yes, I definitely won't deny that at least some of those reasons are valid to some extent, it definitely isn't the beginning or end of the story. One reason is, of course, my personal interest and admiration for Japan, for the Japanese culture, history, language, and way of living. And with that came the very natural and inevitable want to interact and talk to my Japanese family and friends. Of course, learning to speak in Japanese to my mum was fairly easy as I've been living with her ever since I was born. But the same couldn't be said for my family and friends living in Japan. My grandparents, uncles, aunts, and cousins all lived in Japan, and with how distant I was with the non-Japanese side of my family, these were the only other family I knew other than the ones I lived with. And of course, with them undoubtedly being my family, I wanted to be able to communicate with them as much as I could with each passing year I would go to Japan and visit them. So I studied and studied and studied. I, of course, indulged in the language using mediums that I've enjoyed ever since I was little, like manga and anime. But I would also read Japanese children's books, watch Japanese TV shows, and even sit down to read the kanji dictionary when I really had nothing else to do. And trust me, as a 10-year-old child living in Australia, sometimes you really do have nothing else better to do than to just read the damn dictionary for fun. And when I got a little older and a little more intelligent, I would spend time reading Japanese novels, sitting down to listen to the news, and even attempt to read and comprehend what was being highlighted in the weekly newspaper. Of course, that kind of dedication also came with its issues, mostly those involving identity. I remember I would mentally find myself standing in the middle of a bridge, with one side of the bridge connecting to Japan and the other side connecting to Australia. When I would look to both sides, I would see my family, my friends, the people and culture and history and tradition that I all love to an equal manner, but I, of course, would be stuck right in the middle. A part of me was always afraid that if I ever decided to walk to either side of the bridge, either side of the continents, then the moment I stepped off, the bridge would just collapse and disappear. That by choosing one quote-unquote identity, I would essentially be losing one at the same time. Although I had this mental imagery a few times in my life, I didn't dwell on this matter too much either, as I learned the importance and advantage of having grown up with two completely different cultures at the same time. Neither one of these languages and cultures were a second for me. They were both just as first as each other. Not because that's how it is, but because I decided to make it that way. Whenever a sports game would be playing between Japan and Australia, instead of rooting for one team over the other, I would root for both because I could. Whenever I would talk to a fellow hafu who knew both languages, I would talk to them in both English and Japanese because we could. At the end of the day, how you view your hafu identity is ultimately your choice, and no amount of stigma or stereotype should ever deter you from thinking otherwise, especially if you love both languages and cultures equally. And I understand that it's really hard to do something that sounds so deceptively easy, but I was able to do it because I did all of that in the name of love, admiration, and respect. Not just from me towards the Japanese people and culture, but also from the Japanese people and culture back to me. Because if my outside foreigner look was the reason why Japanese people would never fully accept me as one of their own, then I was going to make up for that by being as Japanese as I could from the inside. And I would like to think that after 25 years of being on this earth, coming into my 26th year, that I've achieved that end line just a little more than before. Because I do love this country. I do love this culture. I do love the people. I love everything about Japan, and I want Japanese people to know that just because I may not look exactly like them, a part of me, one entire half of me, is just as Japanese as they are. Just because I may not be as pure as they are by blood, it doesn't mean I can't be as pure as they are in spirit. This isn't a call to action towards every hafu watching this video to rise up and represent the hafus or anything like that. I understand that some people just can't and don't want to go through that trouble, and I completely respect your decision if that is the case. I just wanted to talk about my side of the story since it's part of my life that I haven't really shared publicly until now. And I felt like this kind of personal topic would have been a little too, I guess, nerve-wracking for me to talk about face-to-face on camera, so that's why you're kind of getting a little bit of a different video like this one. If you found this video entertaining or enlightening in any way, then make sure to smash that like button. I appreciate it. I know this video was a little more on the serious side and didn't have much to do with any anime or weeb stuff, but I hope you enjoyed it nonetheless. And I guess let me know of your thoughts or experiences down in the comments. I'm especially interested to hear from any hafus out there, regardless of if you're half Japanese and half Australian like myself. If you're mixed with anything, I'm sure there was at least one portion of my story that you can relate to, so I'm interested in hearing your side of the story as well. But the long and the short of it is that I definitely do want to continue what I'm doing with my love towards both the Australian language and culture and people and the Japanese language, culture and people. Because I can, and I'm going to use that privilege that I was born into to the absolute fullest extent. I want to be able to share my love for Japan and Australia and share it with you guys equally, and I hope I've done at least a little bit of that in the 7 years that I've been on YouTube. So I hope you guys like this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching, like a favorite if you enjoy, subscribe for more anime banter, keep watching anime. Ja ne!